We generally discussed modern India. I hope modern India as a subject is more or less done. We had a very long but very extensive discussion on Indian independence and generally about India itself. And basically, we need to now understand how mains type of questions come. And I need to tell you how to deal with them. But as I said, I will also teach you tomorrow in the morning 7 to 10:30 how these words change the context of the question. So I will discuss that with you. So right now the agenda is, first we'll cover the mains questions. We'll see what type of questions come so that you get an idea. And then we'll go into post independence. And post independence, I have to tell you what book, what is the approach, what is the purpose. So in 2022, we saw these two questions. First said, now please pay attention. Why did the armies of the British East India Company, mostly comprising of Indian soldiers, win consistently against the more numerous and better equipped army of Indian rulers? Give reasons. So, this question is basically dealing with one issue which you already know. Why is that the British was easily able to win even when they had a smaller army and maybe not as equipped as the Indian rulers? What would be the reasons here? You already know it. You know it for yes, very good. Very good. The here what you have to write basically is disunity. Be it the Marathas, be it the Mysorean, be it Carnatic, be it anywhere. They always had something from inside. So first is disunity meant that there was somebody who was doing treachery. Treachery means that somebody, Vibhishan as they call, Vibhishan effect, which is that somebody from inside was always telling them something. Then you can also talk about subsidiary alliance and doctrine of lapse. That how they always did not actually follow a concept of direct conquest. Then you can also talk about how, though they are mostly win consistently against more numerous and they have smaller armies, the simple point is their armies are more disciplined and better trained. More than that, if that was not enough, the Indian rulers are either incompetent or are infighting. So how would alliance and subsidiary and doctrine of lapse come in? Because with a smaller army, they could actually have a better chance because the rulers somehow were not alone. That the British had a smaller contingent, but there was a but bigger contingent which the British was using via subsidiary alliance. So it was not that it was always the concept of, simply a numerically bigger army, because doctrine of lapse and subsidiary alliance was also used to defeat the ruler by systematically taking away his rule. Then you have myopic vision. There are multiple points here which you can add, divide and rule. But I hope you are understanding that this question has no set answer. This question, what is infighting? That they're fighting within themselves. That this question does not have a set answer and anything can be the answer. It's about how you actually write it, because it's only 150 words. It's not a lot of words. So you have to be very precise in how you're doing it. So it's basically divide and rule, myopic vision, Indian rulers incompetent, disunity. Subsidiary alliance allowed the British to have smaller armies, but they were better maintained because they were being maintained by the king. Doctrine of lapse was thereafter used sometimes to not even fight. Thereafter, discipline and better training also allowed them to generally have a better edge over the Indian rulers. So the Indian rulers, though have a basic concept, they technically don't use their army effectively. Now here, as I said, is totally your point, how you make it and what you make out of it. This, as I said, you can practice and send to islive@byju's.com. Target IS Live, whatever you want. That is not the. What is doctrine of lapse? Doctrine of lapse is that if you don't have a natural born son, the area will be annexed. Sometimes only doctrine of lapse was applied to take away the area itself. So the point is, this consistently winning concept is sometimes the British did not even fight to win. And that is the basic point here. Are we clear about the first? Are we clear about the first? These are the type of questions which UPSC is asking with no set answer. They don't need to have what is called facts. You need to have understanding. Now, why was there a sudden spurt in famines in colonial India since the mid 18th century? Give reasons. Now, tell me why there was a sudden spurt in famines. Very good. Perfect. Very good. Land revenue settlements leads to commercialization. Commercialization leads to less food grains. Food grains then leads to deindustrialization, and therefore everybody is landless and famines become standard features. Spurt means a sudden rise in famines in colonial India. Now this again is not a very difficult question, because if you understand the economic policy, we have extensively tried to create, and I have tried to create a basic type of internal understanding, which is that how each of these things were connected to each other and how each of these were nothing but a larger concept of famines is linked to how Indian exploitation is getting connected. You will never get 10 out of 10. Out of 10, if you're getting 4 and 5, it is more than enough. It is good enough. Never get 10 out of 10. So I hope that the second question should not be a problem. Everybody is writing something, which means that they are understanding the question, and you also are understanding what is the demand of the question. And that is why, see, mains is about theoretical understanding. I've tried to give you this understanding of how nationalism develops or how these things are connected to each other, so that you can understand the larger perspective and you don't have to go for facts, because a lot of students will start to write facts. This question does not need facts. What it needs is an understanding of how the economic policy impacts everything. So this is the beauty of the questions which have now started to come, which is that these questions don't deal with basically what we call as facts. Understanding. Think like a Britisher and you will easily answer any question. And I hope that I've made you this much British that you are able to understand how these things are connected to each other. So these two questions I think should be encouraging for you, that you can see how your basic understanding of modern India can now basically become the larger concept here. The larger concept here. Now you see the next set of questions. Very simple. Bring out the constructive program of Mahatma Gandhi during the non-cooperation movement and civil disobedience movement. And you see, since the decade of 1920s, the national movement acquired various ideological strands, thereby expanding its social base. Many voices had strengthened and enriched the national movement during the Gandhian phase. Now, basically, all these three questions are the same. All these three questions are the same. That basically you have to tell that between 1920 to 31, what are the constructive program of Mahatma Gandhi? What are the social base of the movement itself? And what is the nationalist movement getting many voices? Basically, same question, three different times, 3 different years. 2019, 2020, 2021. And they're just changing the context a little bit. So what do you write in 2019? Many voices enriched during Gandhian phase. Now, what do many voices mean? You have, for example, women. You have Gandhi himself. Then you have the concept of students becoming important. Then Khilafat. Then revolutionary. Then Swarajist. Then no changers. Then Home Rule League. If you see it, there are multiple voices within the same national movement. That is why when I used to teach you, I tried to give you parallel, what are called timelines, because the parallel timelines are developing in the same time. So you can see in the Gandhian phase means 1915 to 1940, to 1915 to 1940. Multiple things are there. Multiple socialists, Gandhian socialists, the Gandhian leaders, the socialists, satyagraha, civil disobedience, the concept of non-cooperation. INA won't come because INA is 1941. So if you look at it, did many voices enrich the national movement? Yes, they did. Now you see how the second question is basically based on the same thing, but the decade of 1920s, the national movement acquired various ideological stands, thereby expanding social base. Now social base, so revolutionaries, peasant, worker, Champaran, Kheda, Ahmedabad, though in the just before the 1920s. Then in 1920s, Swarajist, no changes, students, women, revolutionaries. If you look at it, depressed classes, yes. So it's basically, it says since the decade of 1920s, in the introduction, you can talk about how Gandhi between 1915 and 1920 had integrated the peasants and he integrated the workers, and that starts to show in Khilafat, in non-cooperation, in the concept of what we call as CDM, the socialists, the working class oriented politics. And you say ideological stance. What do you mean by ideological? Ideological means Bhagat Singh, Gandhi. We even have Motilal Nehru, who's talking about dominion status. You can talk about the way the Khilafat movement is talking about. So you have Khilafat. See, the basic point is there's no again set answer. And ironically, now the 2021 question now goes and starts to get concentrated. It says, what is the constructive program, non-cooperation, civil disobedience? Constructive program during non-cooperation movement is basically Hindu-Muslim unity, talking about untouchability, talking about how workers and peasants need to get integrated. Then civil disobedience, we know Harijan Seva, Harijan Sevak Sangh, untouchability, the concept of Pune Pact, the concept of separate electorates. So if you look at it, aren't these three questions the same? Just that you have to know the emphasis, how it is shifting. I have given you three flow charts for all these three periods. And if you look at it, every time I've told you that the Swarajist no changes talk about this, Gandhi talks about this, Bhagat Singh talks about this, HR is talking about this, the Indian Socialists is talking about this. This is what you put in. We always talked about women. We always talked about students. We always talked about jamindars. We talked about what peasant was doing. So again, 250 words is nothing for the level of information you have. What matters here is not what you write. It's about how you write it. Ironically, the answer to the three questions is the same. Revolutionary is yes, why not? The fact of the matter is the answer remains the same. But it's about what type or which period or which aspect to highlight more. And this is why I show all these questions together. UPSC never repeats a question. But UPSC generally what it does is it repeats emphasis. It repeats emphasis. Yes, we are having the discussion with regards to mains questions, modern India. So the emphasis keeps on changing, but the period remains the same. 1920s to 30s as it is very important. It starts with 1919, which is Rowlatt. It starts with Rowlatt. Khilafat comes in, non-cooperation, Swarajist no changes, revolutionaries, Bhagat Singh, Irwin Declaration, the Simon Commission. In between that, Jinnah 14 point. In between that, you have the concept of Purna Swaraj, and then it ends with the CDM. So very simply, the discussion we had in class was not futile. Everything which I did with you had a certain purpose, and this is the purpose here. So this question is not about what you know, it's about how you put it on paper. Getting my point? Yes? Very good. No constructive program during Quit India because Gandhi had no control over that movement. Now you see, next set. Now, this is a very interesting, these two are very interesting questions. Highlight the differences in the approach of Subhash Chandra Bose and Mahatma Gandhi in the struggle for freedom. I hope you can write this question. Can you? Did we have a discussion with regards to Gandhi and Bose? Did we talk about how Gandhi talked about social change and conservatism? And technically, just using the table which I gave you, if you write both these points and write them vis-a-vis each other by making a box, you are going to get a 6 out of 10, and there is no issue. This is 250 words. Now, what is even more interesting is the next question, which is how different would have been the Indian independence without Mahatma Gandhi? Now, I want to discuss this question with you because I want to tell you a trick. You can write in a box if you want. Now, there is a way you need to approach this question. See, you obviously cannot say that without Gandhi, independence would never come. Because then you are saying that Nehru, Subhash Chandra Bose, Rajendra Prasad, Patel are useless. That can't be there. And you can't also say that Gandhi, without Gandhi, no difference was there. So basically, you can't be on either extremes. You can't say he is useless and you can't say he is too important. Now, in this type of question, what you do is that you take the middle path. And this is what I want to teach you here. What is the concept of middle path? See, middle path concept is very simple. That you say very simply that without Gandhi, now listen to me, without Gandhi, India would have got independence. But it would not have come in 1947. It would have come slowly but surely, but not in 1947. With Gandhi, the difference was that people were ready by 1940s. And without Gandhi, people would not have been ready, but our national leaders would have found some other way to inspire the people. So by saying that without Gandhi, the only difference would have been the timing of the national movement or the timing of independence, you're technically not giving too much importance and not giving him too less an importance. You're technically saying that if Gandhi would not have been there, there would have been one more Jallianwala Bagh, that the women and students would not have become part of it, peasant and workers would not have become a part of it, mass nationalism would not have been made sense, quit India people would not have known what to do. However, if they did not know what to do, they would have known something else, and the other leaders would have steered the national movement in a different direction. Maybe simple point is with Gandhi we got independence in 1947. Without Gandhi we would have got independence, but we don't know when. Are you getting my point? How I'm leaving it to the examiner, to decide what he wants to do. Without, see, violence, no violence doesn't really matter. You don't just have to not criticize Gandhi or to be too favorable to Gandhi. Because if you're too favorable, then you're criticizing other leaders. If you're criticizing Gandhi, then you're criticizing the father of the nation. So basically, Indian independence would have been something totally different, but it would have come for sure. However, with Gandhi, it came in the form it came in 1947. Now, these two questions I have technically dealt with first as it is, but the second question is about application of knowledge. What is the takeaway till this point? You need to tell me this. The takeaway here is that questions don't ask you, give me the facts. It is asking you understanding. Understanding is something which I've put in a lot of emphasis on, because if you understand, and what is encouraging is that a lot of you're writing a lot of points, New Jallianwala Bagh, this, that. It only shows that you're thinking. So when the next time when you read the PPTs and the annotated PPTs, try to figure out that why did I say what I said? Because I'm trying to create an understanding in your mind, which should be able to create a certain type of picture about modern India. Modern India, students think, is just some isolated event. Everything is intricately related to each other, and that is the purpose which I was trying to tell you. That basically, ideological differences, contribution of leaders, you have to have an understanding of it. They're not asking you, tell us Gandhi's South African experience, but they're asking you, how is Indian independence different without Gandhi? A theoretically strong student will not find this question difficult, but a person who is only going with facts is going to actually find it difficult to write this answer. Because tell me which book gives you the answer of this. Tell me which book is there which is going to answer both of these questions. There is no book. There is no book. Only a student's understanding can actually give you an understanding of how to answer this question. And the PPTs have been placed in that way so that some places actually have gone as high as optional level with you. And that is why the Famine question, when my students attempted that question, they were like, sir, you predicted that question itself. It is literally how you teach famines to us. It is literally how you teach famines to us. And the fact is, I know why these questions actually are made in this way. Because it mostly comes out of my own department in Delhi University. So I have been taught for close to 8 years in that way. And these papers are mostly set by teachers of universities. And I know which teacher would have also made that question, because there's a way he used to also teach. So these are university level questions. These are actually university level questions. 6 years, I have also set papers and I have also checked papers. There's a way you make a question. And by looking at the question, you can make out which universities made that question also. And that is why I tell you that I have taught you in a certain way, because I'm teaching you at a level which is not standard to UPSC. I'm teaching you at the level of something of a university level, and I use my Delhi University experience to tell you how you can tackle these type of questions. And this is why theoretical understanding is extremely important than actually factual knowledge. If that is one takeaway you should take away from here, is that you can see there is no book which is going to answer this question. Are you getting my point? That your understanding of modern India matters, and this is just not true for history. Polity, geography, economics, history, and the other subjects, they are asking questions based on application of knowledge and not facts itself. Facts itself. These are both 10 markers. That's it. So what is the takeaway out of the main questions? Then I go to what we have to do for today. What is the takeaway?